All right, so let's jump in. The premise of this is I have accumulated in a very exhaustive list of all of the tiny, minute facts about Star Wars that most people do not know. Some of them are so crazy that you will not believe them. I have mixed in my own facts, which are completely made up. Your goal will be to see if you could figure out which is fact and which is fiction. And because this is Star Wars, I went with, is this truth or is this Bantha Poodoo?
You need to explain that to people.
So I'll have some very appropriate clips popping up, but that's a episode 1 thing where Jar Jar is stepping in it, and there's a reference there where he says it.
He says it.
Yeah,
God.
I know. And then Sebulba says it at one point, so that like starting in episode 1, that was the kind of like a slur that was introduced into the Star Wars realm.
I'm gonna hate all of these facts, aren't I?
Actually, no, you probably legit are. But okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Do it too. What you got?
Okay, so number 1, fact or fiction. In A New Hope, we find out that the trash monster was actually force sensitive. We're talking about the little squid beast that was inside the trash compactor.
The one that goes like...
Yep, grabbed Luke, it drug him under the water. So we find out that it was actually force sensitive and it wasn't trying to kill Luke. When it grabbed him, she sensed how strong he was in the force, saw how bright a future he had, so she drug him underwater, baptizing him and then releasing him.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it's that level of stupid where I'm like, that does sound like something that George Lucas would say. Because he's such a loose unit in the writer's room. They'd be like, well, you know, because I bet you that comes around because some asshole's like, yeah, I don't know, that trash compactor monster, he seemed kind of cute. And George is like, yeah, well, actually, he was a good guy, and here is why. And it's probably in like a visual dictionary or something. You know what I mean?
The funny thing was that was not him. This a whole lot of this stuff was very recently that it was written. That was from a short story called "The Baptist" by Nidai Okuafar from the anthology From a Certain Point of View.
Ooh, one of my favorite writers, Austin Walker, wrote a short story in that.
Okay, well, but
I'm surprised you actually know what that book is. This is the one. You open with the one where I'm like, I understand that the rest of this is going to be a nightmare. We set the bar too high. Okay, interesting. So that's terrible and bad.
It is. Yes,
I hate it. Yeah, that's really. Wait. So what? Hang on. The idea is that he was put. Why is the trash water how a baptism takes place?
Yeah, I'm thinking that we're not meant to think too deeply about that one. Okay. Sure. Next one, Darth. Let's see if we can really get stuck. Number 2. The New Republic knew that the First Order was traveling around the galaxy and kidnapping children for their slave army for over a decade, but they had signed a peace treaty, so legally they could not do anything. This is why Leia formed the Resistance, because she needed to be able to act when the incompetent government could not.
Ooh, this sounds like some Star Wars type stuff. This sounds like the type of thing where like Bail Organa's there, like reading legislation, being like, we can't intervene. We must have a long. I think that's true. That sounds true to me. I think that's true.
It is true.
That's the real like Star Wars type. Like, how does because like in real life that is how politics work, right? Which is like, man, we'd love to do something, but I'd love to do something to stop these crypto fascists, but there's all these pesky laws getting in our way. I guess we'll do nothing for 10 years.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was that the peace treaty was actually like with the Empire, and the First Order was like technically not affiliated with the Empire. So then there was also these like loopholes involved.
Wait, what? Is that true? Is it not the same thing?
It should be. It's stupid that it's not. It's like a lot of the descriptions are like they're a fractured remnant of the Empire, but then other descriptions are like it's completely different. It's not the same thing.
Well, because Mando makes it seem like the Empire is still kicking around, and they'll eventually reform into. Because there's still like a bunch of generals and shit with, and you know, like it would, you know, like that's okay.
But regardless, the point that it was a political maneuvering that let them not do anything when there is this obvious, slavery and kidnapping and an army rising up, and they're like, nope, we signed something.
But see, that's kind of what I like about. You're about to say something there, but
it's kind so of real. Like that's why I like it. I know that's right.
No, yeah. But that's kind of what I like about Star Wars, and particularly like when it's like particularly the way that the prequels go into the sequel, go into the original trilogy of like that kind of Bush era politic where it is all about legislation and rules and like absent the context of like human suffering. It's like, well, we invaded that place, we have to do these things. However, there is a series of rules as to why we've done it the way we have. And I don't know, like that. Yeah, that's just some real like politics with a capital P in my humble opinion. Still bad. Put it in the bin. Stop. Don't let the Empire take children. That's my hot take. That's unpopular opinion, I know.
Okay. You remember in The Force Awakens when Kylo spent half of the movie looking for the map to Skywalker or trying to mind read Rey because she had seen the map, but the old man at the beginning who had the map, Kylo just immediately kills him. So why didn't he try to read his mind to get the map? Well, it turns out that guy, Lor Santeca, had never actually looked at that map all of those years that he had it, because he could sense through the Force that the map was incomplete, and only a true Jedi would be able to fully complete it and find Luke.
I think that's true because what little I do remember from those films, because Kylo goes into his little hut and he's like, give me the bloody map, mate. And sorry. Because Poe Dameron goes in there and Poe is like, hey, hook me up, dude. Tell me all the Force and shit. And the guy's all mysterious and talking like a shaman type vibes. So I would buy that as like he has a deep connection to. Is he some guy who's like, is he a ex-Jedi or some shit, or like some kind of monk? Because that feels like his vibe.
Yeah, I've not looked too deep into his story, but there was something there. It was not where he was actually connected with the Jedi, but there was some deeper like learned thing going on.
Yeah.
But no, I completely BS to that. No, that
damn it, Doc. Damn it, you got me. 'Cause that sounds like some real.
It does. It does, because like there's like the scene itself makes absolutely no sense unless that is true. So that's another reason I think you wanted to believe it.
You're also preying on the fact that I don't remember anything from the sequel trilogy, which is a real Achilles heel of mine. And I'm actually, you've gone straight for the jugular on that one. Because this, you could tell me you could be like, remember this scene in the second one? And I'd be like, yeah, totally, for sure. I was there for that. I love that scene. Big time. 100%. I remember all of that. Damn. What? Okay. Is he just some dude then? Like, why hasn't he read the map? Because the map's missing a piece, isn't it?
It is missing a piece, but at the same time, if he had just ever looked at it once, then Kylo could have read his mind instead of ever needing to find Rey, and we would have cut out half the film.
See, this is what's confusing to me, is like, I kind of made the assumption that the map could only be read by an R2 unit. And I don't know if I've made that up to make the story make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the second half of it was contained inside R2, which is another point we'll get to later.
That's where that's where my brain's got that from.
Yeah.
Because I remember the scene I'm thinking of is they pop it inside of him and he's like, and suddenly he can do like a big map.
Yeah. Yeah. They needed the second half that he had in order to actually be able to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. People always complain about Rey being overpowered and being able to beat Kylo without any training, but what they don't realize is that when he tried to read her mind, she was able to get inside his mind instead and access his training, similar to downloading skills in the Matrix.
Ooh. This sounds like some like novelization vibe. Like some writer's gone in and tried to fix the movie in the novelization. Ooh, duh. I don't want that to be true so badly. I don't want that to be true because it's not a problem that she's good at stuff. There's other reasons why that's a problem. I really want that to be false, but I bet you I think it's true, but I wish that it weren't.
From The Last Jedi novelization, It was as it was as if his training had become hers, unlocking and flinging open door after door in her mind. And then,
what are you talking about?
And then the worst thing. The worst thing is the writer on Twitter tried to get around the fact that he had just ripped off the Matrix and how they download skills. And he tried to say it's not like you're downloading powers, you're just downloading the knowledge of how to use those powers.
What?
But it's the same it's the same thing.
It's magic. It's the same thing. I'm baffled. I'm truly baffled by that. I'm deeply upset by that. That's horrifying.
Like his quote that he put on Twitter was, "By being in Kylo's mind, she accessed his training, not his power. Parallels are hard, but imagine the muscle memory and environmental awareness for being an archer."
What?
The problem is, like,
being an archer.
Just like the physical training of like how you would you would lift a rock with the Force is almost a like physical sensation if you want to think about it like that. So once you train those muscle memories of how to use the Force to lift a rock, you know how to lift a rock. So if I could transfer that to someone else like they do in the Matrix, that's all it's doing is they're teaching you muscle memory. And he's trying to say it's not.
But the reason that works in the Matrix is like because you can bend the rules of the Matrix so that you can do stuff that your body isn't conditioned to do, right? That's why that downloading works. Is that because you're not physically using your real body. The Force is like you still have to learn how to apply that, right? That's bizarre, man. I hate that.
I mean, either way,
it's a very funny picture in my head of she's in his head, and then because they have that Force moment, and it cuts back, and she goes, "I know kung fu." Better cut of that film. Better version of that film. IMO.
I'm gonna have to see if I can do that edit because that sounds hilarious.
Yeah, wait. So when did? Because now I'm just no. I'm gonna try and even remember the film. It's like, when does this even happen? They have a bunch of like Force connections and shit, right?
Yeah, and in episode 9, they introduced the concept that Rey and Kylo were a dyad in the Force, meaning some like extremely rare thing where the two of them have this like magnetic connection to each other, and they're able to do like unforeseen things like transport physical objects from one person to the other. And the only reason, that was like their part of their dyad connection. That was not something that normal Jedi were able to do.
That which leads to one of the coolest like little bits of fight choreography where Rey like puts a sword behind her back, and then Kylo grabs it, and he's some. This is a few cool like choreographed moments that are a result of that, but it's also like it's a dumb thing to put in your movie.
Exactly. Like
it's just dumb.
There's so much in these series that I'm like, I love that, but it's stupid.
You didn't need to explain it. It's magic, idiot. Yeah. Anyway, we've talked about this before. Okay.
Think back to episode 4, the very first film that came out. They're hiding inside the Falcon. The stormtroopers come up inside. They knock out the troopers. They put on their armor so they could sneak into the Death Star. And this is the famous TK-421, "Why are you not at your post?" It's that famous scene. So there's a bit of a backstory there. Apparently, it was actually very common for TK-421 not to be at his post because he was actually having a torrid love affair with a higher-ranked officer in order to try to get a promotion off of the Death Star.
Oh my god.
True or false?
I don't know that's God, so stupid. That has to be false. That has to be false because it's so dumb. Please be false.
It is from the novel of MSC-6 and Men by Glenn Weldon. And the writer dropped a lot of hints on their Twitter that the higher ranked officer that was seducing TK-421 was actually Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh my god. I think Star Wars is a mistake, actually. Probably.
Like they're turning it into one.
I'm so mad. What are you? This is so. Fuck me.
I told you this was going to infuriate you.
Makes me mad to my bones. This is the thing that's infuriating about this particular like type of universe is that instead of writing something new, there is this like great desire to have every little moment be meaningful in some way, and it's like such a fan way of writing. I hate it. It's bad. Like, it's okay for like him to just be like, why aren't you at your post? You've written, the scene's done. You don't need to then be like, however, let me explain the backstory of that one sentence that made sense by itself.
Yeah. It's like you didn't need to explain why he wasn't at his post. He was literally knocked out unconscious when they were questioning him. It was like there was never any question to the audience as to why he wasn't there. You know?
It's like the wrong kind of cool Star Wars expansion stuff. Because like the cool kind of Star Wars expansion stuff is you're like, that guy in the background's kind of got a cool costume. I want his deal. And then you get like a little micro story about this one guy's, little slice of his life that's not related to anything else. Versus like, man, Boba Fett sure looks cool. Let's have a backstory for him that's dog shit in the comics and bad. And he turns out to be a giant loser. And you're like, oh. But he was a cool toy. Anyway, okay. Next one, we have to move on to something else before I get even.
So
also, why would that's so fucking out of pocket? Why would it be an affair? Like, what? That Star Wars is so not like that type of story where it's like people are having secret love affairs. It's like a high fantasy like love and destiny and shit. Nobody's like, yeah, I'm just boning down behind their back trying to get a promotion.
Yeah.
Like, that's not happening.
It's not even that. It was slipping in the gay agenda, but using it as a way to walk up the corporate ladder at the same time. It's like,
the fuck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now that you've laid that out, that is upsetting for the conflation that there is something inherently sneaky or underhanded. That's kind of troubling too. Oh.
Like, it's really weird to say. I would have been more fine with it if it was just a torrid love affair. But the fact that it was a torrid love affair with the idea that I'm going to sleep my way up to a promotion, like if that was the idea, that's worse, you know?
It is worse. Yeah, don't do that.
Yes, good life advice, guys. Don't do that.
If anyone's taking notes, don't do that.
Okay, next one. In The Force Awakens, when Kylo is kidnapped Poe is tied up and he's getting his mind read so that Kylo could figure out what Poe did with the map. He finds out that Poe put the map into the little droid BB-8 unit, so then he knows they're looking for this little whatever colored BB-8 unit down on the planet. But he has an enemy agent tied up and he could read minds, so he can immediately find out where the rebel base is located and go attack them. The reason he could not was because Poe is a very frequent agent that goes out on these missions, and there's always a chance of him getting captured. So Leia made sure that he never actually knew where they were stationed and that all of his communications were encrypted so that he would, even if he was captured, he would not be able to tell the enemy where their base was.
Oh, okay. There's like a stopgap where it's like he doesn't know where we live. Okay. Because he gets captured and old mate is like, "Where's that bloody wet?" Would I trust Poe Dameron with the coordinates of my base? Probably not.
He's fairly competent through most of it, but
he's kind of a loose unit though, isn't he? Like, I feel like he's the type of guy that like he would like write that on the back of a bar napkin to try to impress some chick and be like, come to the pad, like check it out. You won't believe the spot that I've got, man. Like, it's crazy. You know, I got some pizza in the fridge and some great weed. You should pull up and see what's going on. I feel like that's absolutely Poe's move. I think that sounds true. I would not give that man any responsibility in my army.
Unfortunately, that scene makes no sense because that is not true. He totally should have had his mind read, and Kylo should have known where the enemy base was, and the rebels would have been wiped out by Starkiller Base like that. Whole thing should have been done right there.
AU kicks off from there. Different universe. Let's go. Luke's still alive in that universe. Could be a cool guy like everybody wants for some reason. The age of 70 or however the fucking old he is.
Hey, old people can be awesome.
He could be doing Yoda flips in our AU. He could be out there doing little goblin man doing flips.
All right, next one. In The Force Awakens, when all of them are on Takodana, which is Maz's planet with the castle where Rey gets the lightsaber from.
Yep.
Okay. So when they're on that planet, they see when Starkiller Base fires and it blows up all of the New Republic planets, they're able to walk outside and see the lasers, see the planets blow up. And all of the fans have been like rioting over that because there is no way, they're on the opposite edge of the galaxy. They would never have been able to see that. But the reason they were able to is because the First Order engineers developed a new space-time physics-breaking technology as an intimidation method so that everyone everywhere would be able to see when they fired that laser and blew up a planet.
Well, that's a cool-ass idea, by the way. Like, as a piece of kit. I think that's like a really cool... That's a cool idea for like a propaganda tool.
Yeah,
right?
let's just break the space-time continuum. I mean...
Yeah. It seems
Sounds
easy
easy.
to film it and then probably email the clip, right? But I mean... or like holo project it or something. That's... That's... See, that's dumb enough that it sounds like a Star Wars thing. But my feeling there is... Oh, no. Hang on. Hear me out. It seems like... So... Oh, yeah, right, because they all come outside and they just see it in the sky. I just think that's like good filmmaking. So I'm going to say that's false, and it's someone trying to explain away this mistake, or it's like someone theorizing like how this could be possible because they don't understand how films work and that not everything needs to make exact sense in that way. Well,
you've already put more thought into it than the writers did, because from everything I could tell, that explanation might be true, but no one knows. One of the Pablo Hidalgo with the Lucasfilm story group described it working as some kind of hyperspace rip seen across the cosmos, that kind of stuff.
Yo,
that was his. That was the writers saying, "This is our explanation."
You can't end the sentence with, that kind of those two things aren't contingent. You can't. That's like you can't be like, oh yeah, it was just had a few beers at the pub, and some chips or whatever on a Sunday afternoon. That kind of stuff was chill. That's not the same thing as like, yeah, there was a rift in the space-time continuum as a result of my space laser. That kind of thing. No, I don't know that kind of thing. What do you mean by that? Upsetting, frankly. So is that canon? That's the canon explanation?
I mean, it came from one of the writers, so that's as canon as we're going to get until one of the main dudes speaks up about it, but...
They should just do what J.K. Rowling did and just get a Twitter, just get one centralized Star Wars Twitter account, and then instead of it being so ad hoc, just ruin it deliberately piece by piece with a new tweet each week that's canon. I did it I will make it my personal mission. Every single video and podcast I'm in, I will somehow drag Harry Potter. That is a promise. I don't do it consciously, it just happens.
Okay, next one. Truth or Poodoo? Poe Dameron was sent to recruit Maz Kanata for a mission. Remember, she's the short, little, shriveled up Grandma Yoda type character? So, Poe finds Maz at a resort where she is getting a cat poop facial. A cat poop facial. Now, the attendants offer Poe some tea and a nice colon cleanse while he's waiting, and then Maz and Poe have an argument where she knocks him off his feet and stands naked on his chest.
What? Huh? What? Where's this from? What are you talking about?
Did I make it up or is it real?
There's so many moving parts in that I don't know what to do with. I want to say true, just because I feel like that's fun for Star Wars.
In the novel Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse.
No.
Yep. Yep, there were several paragraphs about the species of feline and how their excrement was apparently good for facials and...
Why? She's an old wrinkled raisin. Why this?
But she could have been so much more wrinkled if she didn't have all of that cleansing going on.
I hate that one. That's bad for everybody. That's you know who that's the worst for? Poe Dameron. That's the worst day for Poe Dameron. You know what? I get his reckless behavior now. I would also have a death wish if that had happened to me. I'd be like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care if I die. You don't believe the shit I've seen. Part of the Resistance, man. I've seen some dark stuff.
Okay. In episode 7, remember how Finn is telling them everything about Starkiller Base, like how it operates and everything, but he didn't tell anyone anything about it until after it blew up all the New Republic planets. Right. Well, that's part of his backstory. Remember how all of the clones had those inhibitor chips in their brains so that they couldn't operate on their own free will in certain things? Well, the First Order troopers had them too. And that's why he wasn't able to physically divulge anything that the Resistance didn't naturally learn on their own.
See, I think this is false because I don't think the clones have chips in their brains.
You got it.
I think you've tried to pull. What you've done, Da, is you've recognized my willingness to understand that Star Wars fails to know what's interesting about its own writing, which is like,
it does.
Man, do these clones have free will, etc., etc. Unfortunately, for you, I've been rewatching the Clone Wars, the TV show. And that is a common thing they explore. And at no point does anybody go, man, about them chips in our brain. So I'm onto you, mate. Let me tell you. I saw what you did there, because the second half of that made complete sense. You buried the lead. It was very well done. Yes. Then, because they just kidnap and like indoctrinate the stormtroopers, right?
Yeah, yeah. The First Order troopers are supposedly all taken at such a young age that they're pretty much indoctrinated from birth, growing up in that culture.
Yeah, like Jedi.
Yeah, yeah. I eventually plan to do a long video about how the Jedi are not good people. They're
I was watching an episode of the Clone Wars recently where what's his name? It's where the bounty hunter, the blue guy, he kidnapped, he's trying to get a list of all of the Force sensitive children in the galaxy, and the good guys go and save this kid that's in imminent danger. The kid's about 5, right? And they usually take younglings like between like 5 to 10 is my understanding, or like that kind of age. And they're not supposed to take this kid till he's 7. Like that's what the list says. And they save him from, getting killed by the Empire or the Separatists or other. And then they're like, he's a bit young, but we don't want to just give him back and then come back 2 years later. We'll just take him now. And I'm like, wait, what? And they're just like, yeah, kid's come with us. And the mother's like, thanks for saving him, I guess. He's just, what? I was like, oh, yo, these aren't the good. These guys ain't doing the right thing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like, not to get sidetracked, but it's weird that the only time we've seen that in the actual films was with a literal slave child. So him getting taken away by strangers was literally better than his home life, you could assume.
We could talk about that interstitial moment for days, because also the Jedi, like, while they're there on Tatooine, Obi-Wan sits on a ship the whole time and does fuck all. And then Qui-Gon's like, we don't have time to free all the slaves. Obi-Wan did. He wasn't doing nothing. He could have done a side mission and ended slavery on Tatooine, but not. He's like, I'm going to sit at the console and do the job of a fucking protocol droid. Anyway.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, okay, next
one. Truth or fiction? Poe was so good looking that he became an in-universe meme, getting put on a recruitment poster and drawing in new recruits based off of nothing but his striking good looks.
I don't care whether I want that to be true so badly. I want that to be true so fucking bad. I hope that's true. Is it?
From the novel Star Wars Propaganda.
Yes. Yes.
A history of persuasive art in the galaxy.
Yes. Let's go. That's incredible. I love that. I love that for Poe. Okay. Maybe that's why he's got such a big ego.
Next one. So in the scene where Finn first meets Rey and they kind of talk about Luke and she's like, oh, I thought he was just a legend. And then also referencing when she meets Han and you're like, oh, you're the famous Han Solo. So kind of comparing those two scenes, because both those men were legendary heroic figures. Rey knew that Han was real while she thought that Luke was just a myth. Now, this was actually intentional foreshadowing because Luke had cut himself off from the Force, which made Rey innately feel like he was not real.
Intentional foreshadowing. Doesn't sound like something Star Wars is capable of.
Okay.
They accidentally walk their shit. And they're like,
Yep.
actually, you'll find that this was the case the whole time. And you're like, you seem like you're making that up. That's 100% false, right?
Yep.
They just, because one of the things I like about that film is that if you ignore the rest of the trilogy, it just kind of works. It kind of works as like a, revisiting all of these old ideas in a new context. I actually really like that person.
I just, that idea bugged the stew out of me because she is like, dude, Robin was the coolest superhero ever. I wish Batman existed, but Robin is dope.
Oh, I forgot about that part of it. Yeah.
I mean,
also like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Also, he's like Luke for that interstitial period between the end of Jedi and the start of Awakens. He's like the Jedi guy. Like he's the Jedi dude out here making it happen in the galaxy. We know he starts the school and shit. Mm-hmm. And she's like, shame he's not real, but his best friend, what a war hero. Excuse me?
Yeah.
Y'all don't have books and holotapes from that era? Nobody's got a fucking... Luke never made it onto his own propaganda poster? Come on.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill was pretty good looking. What's going on?
It's like the fake news got so bad that everyone just stopped paying attention completely.
Oh, well, when you put it like that, it actually
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I would buy that, yeah.
Okay, so next one. In the novel Empire's End, we learned that Snoke was manipulating Kylo to the dark side while he was still in the womb. Leia was able to sense his malicious presence, but she was weakened by the pregnancy and unable to protect the baby, and neither Han nor Luke believed her when she said something was wrong.
That's awful. That's awful. Oh god. Snoke and the womb. Was this before or after Snoke was in a tube being grown? Is the real question of the hour.
This was before the writers realized they wanted to have Snoke be in a tube, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Oh no, good point. Okay. Oh yeah, I gotta. The thing about Star Wars that I have to keep remembering and reminding myself of is the order in which the films came out is the order in which anything was thought about for the first time.
Yep.
So, so like corrupting Ben Solo before he's born. See, I would buy that only because there was that one comic that. So okay, can I tell you about the most buck wild comic panels in Star Wars existence very quickly as to justify my answer here? So there are these panels, and I'll have to find them and send them to you, or you might be able to find them on Google, where it's a ghostly apparition of Anakin Skywalker, and he's through the dark side viewing his mother like Shmi and the Immaculate Conception, and it's Darth Sidious.
Yep,
and
Shmi. I've seen it.
And the writers are like, obviously we're not being literal. It's the dark side is not a reliable narrator, that kind of thing. But the fact that they put that in and everybody took that seriously and didn't understand metaphor makes me think that the thing that you've said could be true, that someone's put that into a comic, and then someone's gone, well, that literally happened, and the writers are like, no, we meant more like this. So I think that's true.
So it's kind of like half and half. There's some inferring that we have to do, but from the novel, it strongly implies that Snoke was twisting Ben to the dark side while he was still in the womb. And from the excerpts that I've read, it does seem like Luke did not believe Leia that anything abnormal was happening, that he was just replying to her, yes, there's dark and good, there's dark and light in all of us. And she was like, but no, the dark is like super strong right now. You're not getting me. The dark is like bad. And he's like, no, you're pregnant. You don't know what's going on.
You're overreacting. She's like, no, the dark is literally inside of me.
Yeah. So it doesn't flat out say like Snoke was manipulating, but it was like malicious presence was sensed and the dark was swirling around inside her. So it's heavily implied.
Gross. Another hot tip: if you're writing anything ever, try and steer clear of like pregnancy stuff in general. If you can, it's always gonna be gross. You're always gonna make it weird. You're never gonna get it right. Just don't. Just it's fine if he just gets corrupted after he's born. Easier, cleaner, less gross.
I mean, I have the same rule for real life. Just stay away from pregnancies.
Just avoid. Just when you see a pregnant woman, run the other way.
Yeah.
It's not. Listen, this is where you come for advice. Okay, if you see a pregnant woman, just bolt the other direction. Don't give it a second thought. You'll be fine.
Because you're not allowed to ask, "Hey, are you pregnant? When's the baby due?" Because that leads to trouble. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole landmine. It's just, you know what? I mean, being pregnant's hard enough without people being difficult around you. So yeah, I agree. It's like just be nice and assume that everybody this is another piece of advice. Just generally try and be like kind to people that you interact with. That's my tip. Just like assume that everybody's having kind of a shit day. And just try and be kind. Especially like service staff or hospitality staff. They're having a worse day than you are every single day. I promise.
I worked at Waffle House for 2.5 years.
Yes, I ran a kitchen at Sizzler for 4 years. So listen, let me tell you.
Okay, next one. In The Force Awakens, when
wait, you have a Waffle Houses?
Yes.
Damn.
You have Waffle Houses?
No, we don't. I maybe had a waffle once in my entire life. It just never made it here as a form of food.
Okay.
Disappointed because they sound great. Wait, is it like savory or sweet?
If we're just talking about a waffle, or if we're talking about the restaurant itself,
yeah, well, like what's the menu? Is it like a dessert place, or is it like savory?
It's like 90% where you go when you're plastered.
Ah,
yeah,
perfect. No, this sounds perfect. I'm into this. Yeah, okay, I'm in. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go right now.
In The Force Awakens, when Han and Chewie get Rey and Finn, and now they're all on the Falcon together, and they go to Maz's planet, Takodana. Now, it seemed confusing that they went there instead of going to someone that we knew that they had a relationship with. Like, why did they not go to Cloud City and ask his friend Lando for help? And it was because at this point, Han knew that Lando was out hiding in the desert on Pasana because he was still trying to find that dagger that he and Luke had been looking for years.
Oh, what? So, hang on, who's mates with who's? This is making my brain hurt. Who's mates with Lando in that situation?
So Han and Lando had a big long backstory. You know, in the Solo movie, that's where they started off their thing.
They're like they're best buds and rivals and whatnot.
And then and then we see them again on Episode 5, where the whole crew visits Cloud City and they hang out with Lando again. And then he's part of the team in Episode 6. But then start off in Episode 7, and they're like, "We need to go hide out somewhere. Where are we going to go? We're not going to go to Cloud City. We're not going to see Lando. Let's go to this new woman."
Oh, I see. I want to say that that's true because they needed to justify why they didn't invite Billy D. Williams back for that film.
The funny thing is, like, this is literally true according to the canon, even though I just completely made it up. But at this point, Lando is on Pasana for some reason. And as far as we know, he has just stayed there for the past, 15 years after he and Luke were trying to find that dagger and Ochi, who was out in the desert. And he just stayed there for some reason.
Good Lord. Okay. See, that's tricky. You've done well there because my brain is like, well, he must have been doing something. And then that's clever. Yeah, you've built a lie off a foundation of truth. Well done.
Okay, we're thinking now back to Rogue One.
Oh God. Okay, I only watched that once when it was in the theater.
It's like one of the best films, and I've only watched it once.
I have bad opinions. Okay, fine. I have bad takes about Star Wars. This is known.
Okay, so the guy who designed the Death Star, so the main character, her name was Jin. Her dad was the one who designed the Death Star, and he built in the weakness of the thermal exhaust port being able to blow up the entire ship, right?
Yeah.
So the way that he got that self-destruct weakness past the inspections was by overloading the director's inbox by CCing him on crap tons of emails so that eventually they all just kind of stopped questioning him when he was making changes to stuff. Additionally, he told the officers in charge that the changes he was making would cause lots of radiation and be dangerous, but only to the lower level people and not to the officers' quarters.
There's a lot going on there. Jesus. So he's like going down like the malicious compliance route of email, where someone's like, I don't have enough visibility over that project, and you're like, fine, you will get every piece of communication that leaves this office at all times. And like they get 10 emails a day from you, and then eventually they're like, okay, stop sending email, and you're like, cool, stop micromanaging me. That's a real life maneuver that you should all keep in your back pocket. However, he's saying, hey, these changes could have radiation for the lower levels. We don't care about them. I mean, is there lower? Is it because I've never understood this about the Death Star? It's in space. Does it have lower levels? Because space doesn't have up or down. How does that?
Well, they still have
work?
gravity on it, and I think at this point I need to refer to the Lego model because that cross section will really help out this discussion.
Allow me to, and that's where you pick it up and you go, here was one I said earlier.
Yeah. No, I don't own one because if I would be like Spider-Man and I just have it just destroyed all over the place.
Lego doesn't break like that, by the way. I like that movie a lot, but Lego does not break like that. If you drop the Death Star in real life that was made of Lego, it would not break like that.
Yeah, it would kind of just clunk to the ground and a few pieces might break off, but it's...
Yeah. The whole thing's not going to shatter.
Yeah. I never thought about that until you just... Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to think of, did they create a 3D like model? So he just dropped and they CGI'd the destruction? Or did they custom build Legos that would just shatter on impact?
They would have just CGI'd the shatter. Okay. That seems cheaper. And the CGI is so good these days. That seems like that's I'm
just fascinated by this Lego thing now.
The physics simulation on that, I don't know. Yeah.
Can you just see the people on set when they show up with just the standard Death Star and they're like, yeah, just drop it. It's gonna explode. And they drop it, it just goes thunk. And then they're like, oh well, that's not what we wanted whatsoever. What are we gonna do?
Tom Holland's like, what don't you just CG it, Governor? He's British. It's me, Tom Holland. He talks a bit like that. But it's very funny though to like just like a bunch of like grown ass adults being paid a bunch of money. And like Kevin Feige standing there, you know, like all of these really well paid people who are like at the top of their craft and making these Hollywood blocks, just staring at this piece of Lego being like, I don't know, what do we do? It's not breaking. I don't know what we do. What do we do? Jon Favreau's there being like, I don't know what to, in my 15 years of filmmaking and my storied career and many awards, I've never had a problem like this. I don't know what do we do? And Tom Holland's like, why don't we just CG it? And they're like, that's why we pay you the big bucks, Tom. Good job. Go do a backflip.
Okay, so as far as the email thing, like the radiation thing was totally true according to the novelization. Okay. And there was a lot of like bureaucratic stuff about him talking a lot and doing a lot in order to distract people. I read the email thing like from 5 different sources, but I couldn't find it from any like official source. So okay. I'm just going to keep saying it's true because I love that malicious compliance.
It's great. Yeah. Yeah. That's I love that. Yeah.
Okay. In The Force Awakens, when they first get on Han's ship and all of the rolling squid tentacle creatures get loose.
Ugh, yeah.
And they start eating all of the pirates, right? They'll just roll over them and gobble them up right there. And you see one of their boots like hit the deck because he got eaten so fast. All of those people were immediately eaten except for Finn. It grabbed Finn and it drug him through multiple hallways trying to get him away to like some private spot. And that's foreshadowing to episode 9 because it could sense how strong the Force was in him. And so it was taking him to a private spot where it could extract the midi-chlorians with its specialized tentacles.
You've tricked me because this is the same setup as the first question. And now I feel, because that one was true. Oh, god damn it. He's force sensitive?
It was like not outright stated, but it was hinted so strongly like 3 different times in episode 9 that yes, he is force sensitive.
Oh, I mean, if this is true, but reminding myself, like they make the
order it came out. Yep,
the order they came out. So they make J.J. Abrams makes the film without really much of a planned sequel. They give Rian Johnson one that is not so much a Star Wars film, but quite interesting nonetheless. That sets up perfectly a great conclusion that Trevorrow writes. They then bin half of that script and then get Abrams to come in and stitch it together into a film. That's the sequence of events that happen, right? They butcher Trevorrow's script. Now, Trevorrow's a good enough writer that I could see him being like, that scene didn't make any sense. How can I, retrospectively adjust that? And because this is one of the things you do as a writer, is when you're writing a conclusion to something, usually in the same novel, for example, you have something in the final sequence or in the first act, and then you go, well, this needs to pay off somewhere, or I need to pay off, and you work it back through the work, or you re-justify why something made sense, and you tweak it and polish it. It seems like something Trevorrow would do, but also I feel like the force-sensitive thing is an Abrams edition. So I'm going to say that's false.
Right on the nose. You got it.
Boom. Thought it just owned with logic.
Okay.
God.
Talking about Maz again, because her castle was where Rey found the lightsaber hidden in a chest way down in the basement. And Maz and Han had been very close friends for years, and she had also met Luke many times, but she never mentioned that she had secretly gotten his lightsaber from Cloud City. She kept it a secret because the Force had told her that Rey was coming one day and Rey would need it.
So she's hanging out with Han and Luke, or just Han? Or maybe both, we don't know. And then the whole time, not saying anything about, I have your old sword in my basement.
Yeah.
She seems like an insane person. Like
I mean, she literally crawls on the table in one of the scenes, so yeah.
She is upsetting. She's a little goblin. Why does Star Wars want their little, they're all the wise monks to be little fucking goblins all the time? I don't understand. Yoda was such a fucking goblin in the original trilogy, and they're like, I mean, the fucking goblin. She has those weird eye spectacle things that are deeply upsetting to look at. Because she had the foresight that Rey would come one day and need it. Well, so here's the thing, because when Rey touches the sword, it puts her brain, she gets the download from the Force of go find Luke vibes, right? She touches it and she has that vision or whatnot, and she sees the Knights of Ren, which never come back, which seems like a missed opportunity in my opinion. I think that's probably true. I think that Maz has touched that sword and been like, oh shit, someday someone's gonna come and claim this, and she's locked it up in a chest and hidden it in obscurity.
It is structurally true, but I completely made it up.
Oh.
But there is she has known Han for years, so she had to have met Luke at some point and had to have completely skipped over the fact that, hey, I found your severed hand along with your lightsaber. I kept the lightsaber, I chunked the hand, but...
I kept both, but...
That's even worse.
It's a little jar of in a little bacta tank floating. Yeah.
It was like Rey didn't open the other chest. She had opened the other chest.
Different vibe. That is not. That's a. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Structurally, you're not wrong. That's a better explanation than just. I suppose it doesn't need to get addressed. There could be many reasons. I mean, we also don't know if she only got it recently, how long she's had it, whether she knew it was Luke's or not. She might have just been oh no, but that's even worse. If you found a laser sword, and one of your closest smuggler friends is best friends with the Jedi guy, you'd probably be like, "Hey, is this an important laser sword that you guys need back?"
Yeah.
Maybe. That's it'd be. I would probably flag that. I would disclose that I have it.
Okay. In episode 7, when they find the Millennium Falcon, out on the planet. It's covered up by a tarp, and this whole time Han has never known where it was because it got stolen. And then Rey describes, oh yeah, it was stolen by this guy, and then it was stolen by this guy, and then it ended up here on this planet, right?
Yeah.
But we never got the story about how he actually lost the Falcon. Well, it turns out through one of the comics that he had gone to some planet, tossed the keys to a parking attendant, and the parking attendant took the Falcon and stole it.
Oh, don't do this to me. Oh. Spaceships have keys? I don't know.
Okay, he tossed the dice. He tossed the dice to him. You need the dice to start up.
You need the dice. Yeah, there's actually it's not a key. It's a vibe check. You get into the cockpit. It's like, what are your vibes? Do you have the keys? Is this a cool guy? That sounds like something. I mean, Han is dumb, so yeah, I think that's true. That seems like a dumb, stupid thing he would do, and then be like, "I lost my fucking spaceship again." Yep,
that's true.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
So he straight up just like, he's like, yo, park the caddy out back, top down vibes, goes in for a beer and comes back and it's gone. There was no parking valet, duh.
Yeah, and the dude was drawn as like a little teenager, and he's like off bragging to his group of friends. He's like, yeah, I stole the Millennium Falcon. Da, 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 da.
Of course, Star Wars ruined. Like, he's like, that's a cool. That's not a bad way to lose it, but like, that's fucking. Don't brag about it.
Yeah, it was an interesting little comic.
Wait, so this kid like sees this ship that's famous from all these war stories. Like, this thing is like, you know, it was famous before the war. It was famous during the, like, this is the equivalent of like stealing like the Pope Mobile or something. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a known vehicle, and he's like, I'm gonna just take it.
Yep.
That's bold. That's real bold.
It is. Yeah. Can't fault him for trying.
Okay. We got away with it, to be fair.
Talking about Starkiller Base, you know that when it powers itself up, it's like sucking up the energy from the sun, and you see like the okay. So it actually was not sucking up the sun itself to use as power for the lasers. It was absorbing something that the sun produced, which was a type of dark energy called quintessence.
What the fuck, Star Wars? There is absolutely no way that that's false. That is 100% true. That's some Star Wars bullshit right there. Because it's just like it can just eat suns.
I know,
that's
right?
Fine. Like,
that's fine.
That's fine. Oh, and it's called quintessence.
Yep.
You fucking kidding me? Oh, just that. That makes. Could you imagine? Because they sat down and they were like, we need to top the Death Star. We need to have a cool new threat. Mm-hmm. It's a planet-sized base. What's a cool visual for that? Oh, it could use it could eat a sun's energy and then use that to destroy a planet. And what? And then some fucking dweeb was like, well, actually, it's not using the sun's energy. It's using something contained within this. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck up. You don't get to come back into the writer's room when you say that shit. You wait outside for the rest of it. You go for timeout after that. You don't put that in. Gross. I hate it.
Okay. Episode 7. R2 was in like deep sleep mode through the entire film, and right at the end, he conveniently wakes up to provide the missing half of the map that BB-8 had the other half of it, right? Now, the question is, where exactly did R2 get that other half of the map? Because that's not explained anywhere in any of the films. So if you think back to episode 4, which was the first time that all of them are on the Death Star, and like at the trash compactor scene, R2 plugs into their mainframe, searches through all the trash compactors, shuts down all the trash compactors. Well, at the time, while he was doing that, he actually downloaded the Empire's entire database.
Don't do this to me, Tom.
Which included fully mapped out secret locations of all the old Jedi temples. And that is why R2 had the map that they needed.
I mean... hang on, let me think this through. Fuck, I hate that so bad. God, that's awful. The reason I think this could be false is that R2's literal job is to navigate through space. That's the function of those units in the starships they're in. but also
slash to
that seems
repair. You see that in episode 1. They go out and repair the Naboo's queen's ship, the astromech droids.
Also, oh, that's right. But also, it does seem like some dumb Star Wars crap. This is a tough one. This is real 50-50 because like, because I suppose it's not a custom map, is it? He's just like on a map. He's dropped a pin, and he's just on some Find My Friends type vibes. I think that's false, but I'm so not sure.
It is true.
No, it's not. Come on. What do you mean? He has a map in his brain. That's his job. He doesn't have to download it from the. Why? He's in the Jedi Temple all the time in the Old Republic, the New Republic, or whatever the fuck it's called. You should just have that already. You should have that already. He's there all the time. That should be in him. That should be in him. I don't understand. Oh, that's so stupid. He's there all the time. Like, what? Dude, why?
Like he predated the Empire, but they're making the argument that the Empire had all of this knowledge that no one else had access to. So
Jedi Temple Archive, R2 literally accesses them in the film. To go video footage to Padme. Oh,
all right, deep breath.
Murdered me, killed me. I hate that so bad. Star Wars is a mistake. Holy shit. God.
Okay, I don't even know if we've gotten to the bad ones yet.
What? I'm so mad at you right now. I can't believe this. I can't. You've done me something foul. Is what you've done. It also. It's an emergency situation, and he's taking the time to be like, also, I'm gonna grab these maps for later, just in case.
Yeah, right. And it's
That's
not just
crazy.
the maps. It was like he downloaded literally their entire mainframe.
Stop it.
Yeah.
He's in there for like a second.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Hate it.
All right, skipping to episode 9 and Exegol, the Sith planet. We had talked several times about how like utterly barren and desolate the entire thing was. And so now we're talking about how all of the ships were hiding frozen under the ice for we don't know how many tens of years, hiding under the ice, just waiting for Sidious to rise them up. So, according to the novel, there were 10,000 Star Destroyers on Exegol, each crewed by 29,585 people for a total of 295,850,000 crew members making up the fleet, which is why they had to bury the ships in ice and put everyone into stasis because it was a completely barren planet with no way to actually feed all of those people. That's also why you see the huge arena with all of Palpatine's Sith cultists chanting for him, because that's the gladiator-style arena where they had to resort to cannibalism in order to live.
I just need a minute. Okay? I just need a fucking minute. I'm furious. I'm furious, dog. What do you mean? Resorted to cannibalism. What do you mean?
There's nothing to eat. What do you want him to do? It's a barren planet.
But like, cannibalism.
Okay.
I forgot he had cultists. Okay. So wait, they're in stasis under that. That kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, this is all my headcanon because there is no way for them to all have actually lived on that planet with no food for however many years, and they're literally buried under the ice. There is no way to get anything to those ships. And then you've got all of these thousands of cultists just standing in this stadium waiting for Sidious to do something. And I'm like, what are they doing? How are they living? What are they eating? Guess they're eating each other.
That is grim. I like it.
Which ironically makes a lot of sense for like the Sith way. Like the weak are weaned out and the strong survive.
Maybe it's like Oh well, maybe what he's doing. Maybe they're all like, maybe, maybe they're not. Maybe they're all. Maybe all the cultists are just like all of the Snokes that went wrong. You know what I mean? Like they were just. They're like the B side Snokes that like they're all kind of a bit. They weren't good enough to be sent out to be like the real ones, so they're all just like hanging out, chilling.
You know, that's hilarious because you never see any of them close up. So he just like invented friends because he didn't.
Oh, that's kind of depressing.
It is.
Darth Vader's gone. Oh, none of my homies are here anymore. That's sad.
Okay.
God. Okay.
We might have talked about this one before, but remember how we're seeing the fraction of the Death Star that is out in the ocean because it crashed there, but that's a completely different planet in a completely different system. And
is it?
It is. Completely different system from where the Death Star actually exploded. And that's because when the reactor blew up, it created tears in space and time, and the pieces of the Death Star fell through space-time instantly across the galaxy, across many planets.
I hate it. Now you've done this on purpose because you know that I now think this is possibly true based on our previous conversation of the space-time thing. Bollocks. I don't know. You've really thrown me off here. So wait, it blew up so big that
it was some science mumbo jumbo with when the reactor blew up, it entered hyperspace and blew the chunks through hyperspace to other places.
Okay, now you're talking me into it.
Yeah.
Little hyperspace lane opened up. Little. I think that's. You know what? I want that to be true. That sounds like a cool way to get wreckage everywhere.
It is true. Not to say that it necessarily makes sense because the reactor would not be what generates hyperspace lanes.
Still cool though.
Yeah.
It's like a cool idea to be like, why is there wreckage of the Death Star all around the galaxy? That's just like a cool thing. That's just because that. Give me the short story where it's like some dudes on some fucking far off planet stumble upon some wreckage and they have to go in and see what's up. It's all spooky and stuff. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, I like that from a narrative detail. It's a really cool opportunity to do some fun stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a better story than let's start over from scratch and we'll go with that.
Okay, let's actually write. So, Return of the Jedi ends.
Yeah.
Now you take Tatooine and I'll start writing from here and then we'll do our trilogy again.
Because just imagine when you come up on Rey, she's going through the wreckage of the Star Destroyers, but just imagine she's going through the wreckage of the Death Star instead. It's just a chunk of this Death Star that landed on that planet there.
Wouldn't that be cool and interesting and foreshadow the Palpatine? And because maybe she feels some connection to the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. True or false? This is regarding the Holdo maneuver, which showed us that any ship can obliterate an entire fleet just by ramming them at light speed. So, according to the books, that maneuver only actually worked because of the ship's new experimental shields. It wasn't actually the ship itself that did any damage to anything. The ship was destroyed almost immediately. It was those experimental deflector shields that continued traveling at light speed and destroyed the enemy fleet.
You're taking my will to live, Darth. You're slowly draining it away. I think that's true because the continual effort to try and rewrite Rian Johnson's decisions is an ongoing battle in Star Wars that the nerds will never let go. So I think that's true.
Spot on. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. This is even worse. Okay, brace yourself.
Okay.
Ever wonder why Luke is always changing clothes in The Last Jedi? The first time that we see him...
I assume that he gets... What? No, hang on. No, that's people do that.
No. So, when Rey first meets him, he's wearing these white, ceremonial-looking, very Jedi-like robes. Yeah. After he goes back inside, he changes into his old grubby fisherman black-brown getup, right? When Rey leaves again... and he sees the ghost of Yoda, he has changed back into those white ceremonial Jedi robes. Now, the reason for that is because every time that he tries to go to the tree and burn down the tree and burn up the Jedi texts, he puts on his ceremonial robes to try to burn those things down, and he keeps failing. So when she first met him, he was on the cliff because he had just failed. He was too weak to burn down the tree and burn up the books. That's why he still had those robes on.
Oh, so dumb. Because on the one hand, makes sense. You go through a bit of a ritual. You want to prepare yourself, prepare your mind. But also, I just assume that he changed because, like, it started raining or something, and those clothes seemed like aquaphobic. Like they just seemed like waterproof outfit. Oh, if that's true, that's so. No, you know what? Hang on. I think you're taking me down the garden path. I think that's false, but it's based on something that kind of is similar. Like I think there's some other similar explanation, and you fudged the specific, or there's no explanation. It just never gets addressed.
It's completely true.
Damn it! No. No wait. He's like, because what? Huh?
Apparently,
I don't understand that.
Yeah, apparently it happened like multiple times. He kept trying to go burn down the tree and fully end the Jedi Order by destroying the texts, and every time he would put on the ceremonial robes, and every time he would chicken out and not be able to do it, and then he'd get sad and he'd go take off his robes.
He's psyching himself out because he's putting the robes on. He's like,
you just got to do it, man. You just got to get the gasoline. You got to take a match.
Yeah, you just got to wake up on a Tuesday, don't have a shower, just walk over there and do it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why are you? You're doing yourself in, man. So dumb. So wait, the idea is that right before Rey arrives, he's just gone to try and do that, and that's why he's so miffed, and then tosses the saber.
Yep.
Maybe Ryan Johnson is onto something. I actually don't mind that. Yeah, be good if it was in the fucking film though.
Yeah.
Like if they had a conversation about that, where he had to be like, "Hey, listen, the reason I was not in the mood," you know, like you actually have to address that in your text. You can't just have that. And I guess it's because Johnson was stuck with the cliffhanger from the end of The Force Awakens, right? Which is a dumb way to end a film, by the way. Like, it's a really stupid way to pen in the next writer to be like, okay, and then here's the scene you're gonna have to pick up from. It's like, don't do that. This is another piece of hot, fresh writing advice. Don't do that to other people or yourself. Don't write yourself into that kind of cliffhanger corner. And I don't know why. It's because J.J. Abrams is this fucking magic lockbox bullshit from Lost. It's that all over again where he's like, what shall this mystery box contain? Just don't do it.
And I've had a lot of arguments with people who try to say that episode 5 ended on a cliffhanger too. And I'm like, no, episode 5 had a legitimate conclusion and resolution. It did not end on a cliffhanger. So episode 5 was that's like right after the Luke, I am your father, that whole scene, and then Luke's lost his hand. So then Luke is on the medical frigate. He's got his hand reattached. We see at this point Han has been kidnapped. So Lando and Chewie and maybe one more, but they're going off to rescue Han. And Leia is with Luke in the medical frigate, and they're talking. They're basically saying goodbye. Don't worry. We're going to go find Han. We're going to rescue him. Everything is going to be fine. There's like 10, 15 minutes of story, of conclusion after, the high point of the I am your father scene. With this, they went from the ending climax, they went down to the resolution, and then they went back up to another climax of her holding out the saber and saying, are you going to take this or not? And then they cut it off. So that is a literal cliffhanger, whereas the other Star Wars movies were not. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm angrily preaching at you, and you're the one that was like, "Don't do this." But
it's frustrating. It's like this is, I mean, because it makes for a good end to the first film. That's the thing. But it makes for a shitty opening to the next one.
Yeah,
and that's no way to treat a story. That's no way to treat like narrative. It's careless to sacrifice one thing in service of another without fully interrogating the reason that the reason that stories are structured the way they are. Is because you like you said, you need to have that come down and that pacing, and you go, cool, now things feel wrapped up, let's start the next one, such that all of your kind of each story in a sequence of narrative should feel self-contained and should be part of a larger narrative, but legible by itself. If you think about like the Lord of the Rings films is the easiest example. each of those has a very contained narrative that they work through a bunch of ideas, they solve a problem, and then they move on. And they work through a bunch of ideas, they solve a problem, and they move on. And then, you know, they eventually solve the ultimate problem. They are part of a great trilogy, but they work by themselves. And that's part of why that's such a good series of films. Versus The Hobbit, which is like, they try and make each film end with a cliffhanger that leads them to the next one. And gets particularly egregious with the second and the third, with the dragon and the, you know, the pacing around that stuff. Don't end your film with a cliff. You could just, hey, people are gonna come see the next one. It's Star Wars. They're gonna come see it. You don't need to do that.
All right, couple more. A big plot hole in episode 8 was hyperspace tracking and how the good guys would never ever again be able to escape from the bad guys because they could always be tracked through hyperspace, which is something that we see at the beginning of episode 9, where even the TIE fighters are immediately able to track them through hyperspace, which is why Poe tries to do the hyperspace skipping thing to get away from them.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that they're not actually tracking them at all. They're doing probability calculations. They have a massive supercomputer that is factoring in all known rebel bases or contacts that are along the last trajectory of their jump-off point. Then the computer sorts through trillions of possibilities and guesses where the ship is going to come out of hyperspace. And this level of computing power is made possible using a static hyperspace field that's generated around the machines that accelerates their processing power to unheard of levels.
What?
This one is easy to think your way around. This one is easy to think it. You got it.
Is it?
Yep.
Because all no rebel bases, but aren't they making new rebel bases? Hang on, because they go to places where there aren't. I think that has to be false because they track them to places where there aren't rebel bases.
You would think that because it doesn't make any sense, but this is canon. This is true.
Stop.
It is true, but it doesn't make sense. This is them going back and trying to make tracking, trying to give an explanation to tracking because they didn't give one in the film.
Why can't they just have worked it out? This is the thing that's so frustrating with stuff. They could have just worked it out.
The ironic...
they could have... It's science, man.
I mean, it's like the ironic thing is that this might make more sense than actual tracking because they could guess all these vectors where they might exit, but there's no way to know at what point they exit. But using probability, you could figure out, hey, are they going to go to Fred's house? Are they going to go to Claire's house or whatever?
That's true. I think the challenge with that is it assumes that one of the things that AI is currently really bad at is assuming intention. Part of what makes probability a thing that is easy to track is that you're tracking the likelihood of things happening. It's hard to calculate intention. So like, it's hard to be like, well, here are the 4 options. Then we're likely to go to these ones for these reasons. You know, those reasons have to be calculable and deterministic. And it's really hard to be like, they will go here because it is safer. Like, how do you assume that your calculation for what's safe is aligns with their, you know, assumptions or ideas or determination? Like, it's a really challenging, like, sci-fi concept.
And the bigger issue is that they miniaturized that technology. Like, you could see that it took maybe half of one of those Star Destroyers to have computing power that massive. But then they miniaturized it and were able to do it in small TIE fighters in the next one. And that's even worse because when Poe was light speed skipping, he was very obviously not putting in predetermined coordinates. He was just doing random stuff. Yeah. And so this would not work with random stuff. So that was the thing that I was thinking of because they certainly don't go to where Rebel Base. Yeah, so they came up with an explanation to try to explain something that they came up with in a previous film.
That explains it wrong?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Star Wars. Guys, come on. The other thing that's funny there too is like, can't you just simply say the Empire has all of the money in the world. They have worked out how to do this because they have hella researchers on this. Like, why is that not an acceptable explanation? I don't understand the need for
it's probably because just the fan base is so large, and there's that subset that wants to know how stuff happens, because that just makes you feel more deeply involved in the world. So everything, I mean, it shouldn't be this way for like fantasy and that kind of stuff, but this is more towards the sci-fi where people want to know, how does this work?
Yeah, which brings us back to that thing of like these sequel trilogies, man. Like the genre's just so all over the place. Crazy.
Yep.
On some real Asimov shit.
Okay, same film, episode 9, at the very beginning, when they are talking to the spy and they are getting a secret message from him, they plug up this ginormous, huge data cable to R2, and they start transferring a message to him, and they're like, hurry, download it, while all the TIE fighters are coming towards them.
Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna have to take your word for it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't remember that at all.
It was more confusing than it was memorable, because you're in the future, but you're having to have this huge data cable. But apparently the point of that massive cable was because the message was so complex because of the encryption, because that message was coming from Hux, who was the secret spy within the First Order, and he had used so much encryption to be sure that he
Hux
was...
is- Huh?
Episode 9. He
Okay.
was like, he was so pissed at Kylo that he was doing everything he could to make the First Order lose, just to make Kylo lose. So he was the one.
Definitely seen this film. Okay.
That's just
Sure.
it's just how memorable it was.
Yeah. Okay.
But so that's why they needed that massive cable, was because of all the encryption, and R2 was running all of these algorithms to decrypt the message, when literally all the message said was Palpatine has come back. It was like 2 lines of code, and they needed this massive cable and like 20 seconds of time to actually send in the message.
Is it that, or is it that it's a real long distance away and it has to be routed through different servers and stuff? Well, first of all, I don't remember this scene at all, so this is actually really hard for me to even like try and grapple with. I think that's true, but I reckon it's true. I reckon it's like been re-explained through a novel.
I completely BS'd it. I have never heard an explanation for why they're using. Yeah, they're using this massive like 25 gauge cable to transfer data in the future. Like, it makes zero sense when R2 probably has Wi-Fi. I mean,
is it like a set designer at ILM misunderstanding that like bandwidth does not literally mean like you need to have more width of a cable?
And
like,
even
they don't.
And even then, the fact that the message was just literally like Palpatine has come back and this is proof. It wasn't the entire database of the Empire, which R2 also did super
Which he
quick.
did in like a second.
Yeah.
Huh?
And all he had was a tiny little thing that came out. He didn't need this huge cable. It's
You ever like, this is the kind of thing where like you ever have a conversation about something and you say the same word too many times and it stops sounding like a word? Star Wars' continuity is like that, where the more you dig at it, the more you're like, none of this is anything.
Yeah. Okay, this one is really gonna break you.
Go ahead.
Because Rey grew up uneducated, eating with her fingers, and having no friends, she never learned how to properly express emotion. The novelization of Episode 9 explains that the kiss between her and Kylo was not romantic at all. It was more like she was trying to give him a hug or a high five, but she didn't know what to do.
Because the kiss, let me tell you, the kiss, rank vibes, okay? Rank vibes. It's not good. It's bad vibes on that kiss. I'm writing a novelization that's going to try and fix what is the messiest piece of writing that Star Wars has ever put out. And one of the things that I decide as I'm writing this novel is this kiss with the foulest vibes is the reason the vibes are off. Is that Rey doesn't understand what a kiss is. Because she's got no... That's rough for Rey as well, because she's got no friends and has... I mean, it's true, but still unfortunate. I mean, she... No, because she's hugged Poe before. Not Poe, Finn. She's hugged Finn. So she understands... I think this is... I think this is false, and there's some other stupid explanation.
So half of it is true. The kiss was not romantic. It was the kiss was retconned to not be romantic at all. It was supposed, according to the novel, was just supposed to be, oh, I appreciate you. I'm glad I found you. That's all that this means. But it's just hilarious to me that she was just like going for a high five and she didn't know what to do, so she kissed him.
Oh, it's bad. It's so bad for so many reasons. She wasn't born yesterday. Like, she's seen humans and she dumped in with the resistance for like a year at this point, training and shit, right? Like, she's surely seen she has for sure seen people do that romantically. I bet you that who's the guy from Lord of the Rings that's in the final one? Monahan? I can't remember his first name. The guy that plays Pippin. He's one of the resistance dudes.
Oh yeah, Dominic.
Yeah, between him and Poe Dameron, they're definitely romancing up some ladies in the resistance. She's seen that go down for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's so ridiculous. God. Did she then rewriting it to be like it wasn't romantic. She just stop. Just do that. Because the thing you should rewrite is the bit before that to make the kiss believable. You don't rewrite the kiss. That's so stupid, man. God.
All right, I got two more.
Okay.
At the end of episode 7, when they finally had the map to Luke, Leia was originally going to go herself, but then they realized that sending a 19-year-old girl would have more influence than Luke's sister.
Say that again? The fuck are you saying?
Like,
what?
Why did Leia not go to get her brother? They sent the 19-year-old girl instead.
What are you talking about?
At the end of episode 7, they have the map to Luke.
Oh.
Right?
Yep.
And Leia does not go.
They don't. Oh,
they send the 19-year-old girl as the bait to bring back the old man.
And wait, what did you say the reason was? Oh, wait, was that? No, okay, not included. Fuck. Oh, I've never I hate it. Well, because Leia can't go, she's too important. She's the head of the resistance, I think.
They have telephones. It's the future. Oh, she can still communicate with them.
You can FaceTime him. Fuck. You read the whole thing again for me?
I only put this one in here. I just want to see how long we're going to laugh at this one.
Oh, I can't. Read it again. I want to make a determination.
Okay. At the end of episode 7, when they finally had the complete map to Luke, Leia was originally going to go herself, but they realized that a 19-year-old girl would have more influence over Luke than his sister.
Fuck. Because that seems like the type of shit that they would think is true, that they would think would work. Because they're like, he's a cantankerous old fuck. Who wants nothing to do with the resistance, but I think that seems true to me. That seems like some.
We'll never know. Like, if they thought that, they would never ever actually admit it.
No, that's so funny. That's so funny to be like, let's send this stranger instead.
Yeah.
Well, with Chewbacca though, at least, right?
Yeah, but he literally stays on the ship.
Oh yeah,
and so does R2. Yeah, like she doesn't go get Chewie until Luke locks himself in his cabin, and then Chewie breaks down the door.
I would be like, I'm with one of your old best friends. And your other best friend, the droid.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, that whole scene from Luke's perspective also must have been rather weird. He's like, I came here to get away from people, and now you're walking up and handing me stuff. And I don't even know you.
Especially after the day he's had. He's like, I buy another goddamn book again. Fucking got it. And he's like, I hate Mondays. You know? He slinks back into his cave.
All right, my favorite one. When Rey killed Palpatine, he took over her body. Rey could have used Luke or Leia's lightsaber to train a new generation of Jedi, but instead she buried them in the sand because she is secretly Palpatine and does not want the Jedi to come back.
Don't do this to me. Make my brain hurt.
The problem is your brain hurts because what I am saying is canon according to the story.
This gives me a literal headache.
I know, right? Like he says,
I
if you
have a headache now.
I know. He says, if you kill me, I will take over your body. She killed him. He should now, according to the canon, be inside her body. He should have possessed her.
I thought he was just full of shit because he didn't want to die. Because he's a lying liar. His defining characteristic is being a lying, chaotic chaos liar. He's just, you watch him in the Clone Wars TV show and he's just fucking around for the sake of it, lying through his teeth the whole time about everything. God, because here's the thing. The reason she buries the lightsaber is because poetically, it's her saying the past should stay that way. And it's time we all moved on from the dyads of ages gone. That's thematically what's occurring. That's why her sword is not blue or red, it's yellow, okay? Also, cool color. Is it yellow? Am I making that up?
Yeah, no, you got it.
Okay. One thing I remember from that film for some reason. Thematically, that's what's going on, right? It's us saying burying Leia and Luke's saber is the equivalent of saying the Resistance and the Jedi and these old ideas they can finally come and lay to rest, and we can all move on absent this die. I do think it is the most Star Wars thing of all time for someone to see that and go, I need to explain why that involves Palpatine now. And why there needs to be some logical explanation, despite the fact that it makes sense already. Like, it's somebody being like, I don't understand metaphor or story, so I'm just going to re-explain that thing that has an explanation in the story that clearly makes sense if you just interrogate the text for like a second and think about it for like a second. Like, that is the most Star Wars shit ever. For someone to then go, actually, secret reason is that Palpatine's in her brain. that fucking goblin now lives in Rey's brain. Did she talk to anyone after? It's all just montage.
No, there's for some reason an old woman with a camel is walking across the desert and happens to come up behind Rey and asks what her name is, because that's what you do with strangers.
Oh, and she says Rey Skywalker, and I hate it. Yeah, bad. You didn't need to, Abrams. We get it. She went to the Lars farmstead. She's burying the sabers at the farmstead. She's clearly don't need to have a say it.
And like all of the problem is like all of the cool thematic things they could have done, they just like weren't brave enough to do. Like the entire point was supposed to be, you are a nobody, you came from nothing, but that doesn't mean you can't change the world.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be the point of this was kind of supposed to be like, you don't have to be a Skywalker to be important. She should have
Johnson's argument. Yeah,
like she should have just been Rey. She should have been fine with just saying Rey. The audience should have been fine with saying she's just Rey. She doesn't have to be a Skywalker.
Which is continuous with the idea of like Finn doesn't have a last name. He is his own person, right? These are people that were nothing, that came from nothing, had no identity, and forged for themselves meaning and destiny. Outside of the Skywalker, oeuvre of this destiny bullshit and the prophecies and whatnot. Like, that seems to be the conclusion that they were going for. And if you've read Trevorrow's script, that is certainly where that film goes. And then this just takes that and goes, no. The film's called The Rise of Skywalker. And that can't be a metaphor. It has to be literal. There has to be literally a Skywalker at the end that rises. It's like, guys, come on. I think... Look, it sounds true, and I hate it. Like that's the thing. Like, you're not wrong. Canonically, that should be what happens. But I hate that there is a bunch of people that will. I bet you there are people out there that believe this wholeheartedly.
I mean, I am one of them because of the fact that it is literally what the dialogue says. Like, that is so hard to get around. Like you
Except
could
that-
you could argue that maybe he was lying, but why would he lie and try to get someone to kill him? Like, what if she does it? Like, she was literally going to raise her saber and cut him down then and there to save her friends, and she only stopped it when she sensed that Kylo was nearby. So if he hadn't showed up, she would have sacrificed herself, killed Sidious. So unless he was telling the truth, he would have gotten himself killed. We know he wants to survive at all costs because of all the cloning and stuff. So it has to be true that he can go into and possess another person. So logically, she kills him, he possesses her. This is what the dialogue of the story gives us.
I hate it.
I know. I mean,
It's so bad.
it's like how I don't know how they did not see this when they were writing it. It's like they write the line, "If you kill me, I will possess you," and then they're like, "Let's have her kill him."
Just cut that line. You guys doesn't have to say it. He should say some shit like, "If you strike me down, I'll come back stronger." Like, there are things you could say here that would feel like they rhyme with Star Wars. The other thing that's interesting is George Lucas often talks about Star Wars as being a silent film, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But he talks about it often with the level of commitment that only the unhinged man George Lucas could, which is this idea that people say, "George, why did that character say this thing? It disagrees with this other thing that's been said." And his argument to that is, well, Star Wars is primarily a silent film. It's about the choreography, and it's about that's why the score is so important. It's the serials that it's based off of, right? Those kind of poppy, spaghetti western fantasy serials. We've talked about this before, but you drop into them at any point and you kind of work out what's going on, and then you get a self-contained story, and then you drop in at a different point, etc. That was the vibe he was going for. And one of the key things about that is that the dialogue isn't necessarily as important as looking at what's happening and understanding who is important and what they want, like emotionally. Like, it's all very kind of driven by emotion and things like that. And the specific dialogue is less important than the broader movements and activities. This is kind of why the sequel trilogy feels like crap to watch sometimes, is that it's so focused on the sci-fi part of it, like we talked about. And sci-fi requires so much exposition and detail and, agreement of detail, right? Things have to match up and interlink. If you say they can do hyperspace tracking, that needs to link up with our previous knowledge. If Holdo does this full, incredibly visually interesting maneuver to destroy these ships, that has to link up with other stuff we have. Versus like Lucas's imaginary of it being that kind of poetic, kind of ballad style, Western silent film-esque vibe of like, and that's why the Force doesn't need to make sense necessarily. It's more of like, it's a metaphor, it's analogy, it's emotional. That's why, like, when the second you get to that level of trying to explain it all, it becomes impossible. That's why all of these things are so infuriating, because they just don't make sense with what his original vision was. And his original vision is unhinged. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would also be doing some retconning, but it's just, people keep going too far. Like, it's too much. You can just stop. You just pause and go, maybe we should just take a step back and work out like what the whole point of this. And to an extent, you see that with Favreau's work on The Mandalorian, where it's very much less concerned with detail and more concerned with emotion and character growth and things like that. And increasingly, one of the reasons that Boba Fett is kind of boring as a show for a regular, like I found it kind of dull. I wasn't particularly engaged in it. Is that it gets very into like stuff that should be interesting, like mob boss stuff and like Tatooine and all this stuff should be interesting, but it can't pick a direction for long enough. It can't stay tuned to one thing for long enough. It has to cut between and have this sequence with the Mandalorian, then cut back and then be doing all this other stuff. And like the most interesting parts of that whole show are before, it's when he's in the desert, right? And it's him trying to work out, how do I reform myself after this incident? And the mob boss stuff is just kind of dull in comparison because it doesn't have the same weightiness and the same poetic kind of aspirations as that earlier stuff. It becomes very procedural. And one thing that Star Wars at its best, in my opinion, is when it's non-procedural and it's epic and it's fantasy and it feels big and important and exciting and passionate. And it's like talking about the way that the the regions of different mob bosses control spice traffic is like not particularly interesting in that context. It's a cool thing to do in a different kind of story or as a throwaway, but to make it a plot point is odd in a way that is hard to explain in a way that only relies entirely on genre. And like, just don't have Palpatine say it. Like, that's the thing. Just change the line. Just change the line. This has defeated me. You've defeated. I hate this. You've defeated me. Is what you've done. I need to like wash my brain out.
Well, we wanted to do something different, so there we have it. Now we both have headaches and we want to go drink.
What? Such suffering. Something different was us both having a terrible time. Can't believe you've done this to us. So rude. Listen, if what I would love is in the comments, give us your like bonkers that's true Star Wars fact that makes your brain ache. Like, I want to know the other shit that people know about. Like, I want to know your like back pocket at the bar. Here's my like wildest like bullshit Star Wars fact that's canon. I want to know them, and then we could talk. Maybe if there's enough really cool ones, we could do a follow up where you present them to me, and I try and work out if they're true or not. Or we could just discuss them because I reckon people would have some crazy ones.
Yep, and we could definitely do a follow up because I have half of them that I still have not said.
No. So upset by this.